So, Claire, this week was the GFO Classic, which is the spring meeting of the GFO. How many people were there?
We had about 500 in attendance, so that's farmers and industry, but mostly farmers.
Okay, so I guess what was some of the highlights of the meeting this year?
A lot of people were really impressed with our speaker lineup, and I think it turned out really well. We had Peter Mansbridge, who is an incredible speaker and had some really interesting things to say about Canada and his travels abroad, and the impact of Canadians. Also, always a crowd pleaser is Cal Wewell, a risk management consultant with FC Stone. He always fills the room and gets people pretty excited as he provides insight into sort of what the markets are going to do in the upcoming year. And we also had Kevin O'Leary from CBC's Dragon's Den, who is always an interesting guy to listen to because he's got an interesting take on sort of the world. So he was an excellent speaker as well.
Well, let's start with Kevin O'Leary. He obviously is a pretty interesting guy. Did he have any comments about agriculture specifically?
Um, he did have one comment, and he pretty much said that now is a good time to be growing grain. He sees it as it's going to be. He didn't say anything directly, but he did say that he does see it as something that is going to be important within the next decades or so. And he also talked a lot about the environment because he has a new show on the Discovery Channel, and he did say that there are a lot of opportunities to make money and save the environment. And I think that resonates pretty well with farmers who are, the original stewards of the land. So that was pretty
Yeah,
interesting to hear him talk about that.
farmers would identify with that, I think, pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So did he make any comments about like Canadian? Like we're hearing a lot about like people like himself, would be a hedge fund manager and investor, looking at buying large tracts of farmland and renting out to farmers, or that's happening a lot in the U.S. Did he say anything about hedge fund activity in agriculture at all?
He didn't go into any hedge fund activity in agriculture. He talked a little bit about his two different shows. He's on Shark Tank on ABC in the States and on Dragon's Den and CBC. And he sort of talked a little bit about the difference between those two shows, Canadian and American. But other than that, he didn't really go into much about hedging,
How about
hedge funds and things like that.
what about Peter Mansbridge? What was his kind of message to the farmers that were in attendance?
Peter Mansbridge had some excellent stories about sort of his travels abroad and people's impression of Canadians, which is overwhelmingly positive. And at the end, he did entertain a few questions, and somebody asked him, "So, what do we need to do to get this, stories about farming into the media?" And Peter Mansbridge certainly had a good answer, and he said that you really need to personalize the story. And he thinks that farmers have an important story to tell, but it needs to be told with a personal approach
Hmm.
because that's what really resonates with people.
Well, he is a very very good storyteller himself. So did he give the group any tips, and like when they say personalize the message, what does he mean by that?
He talked a little bit about you need to make sure that there's a face and you're telling not just sort of the business side of things and the production side of things, but also the personal impact of the farm industry on farmers and on people in the industry, and really to make sure that there's a face to the story.
So the GFO Classic, we've got corn and wheat and soybean growers. What is kind of the outlook right now from their perspective? I'm sure everybody, after the summer that we had last year in Ontario, everyone was in a fairly good mood. But what do people think? What are farmers thinking about heading into the 2011 cropping season?
Well, 2010 was absolutely a phenomenal year in Ontario, and I know farmers are pretty excited about how things turned out with the markets and the weather and everything like that. But, they also have a healthy dose of reality, and they know that anything could happen in 2011, so they're certainly positive going into the 2011 cropping season, but they're not unaware that anything could change with the weather and the markets. And I think they see that the markets are volatile, and they see that volatility, being maintained throughout the cropping season. So there's certainly some caution around that, but overwhelmingly it's a positive impression of sort of what's to come.
Do you think that when you talk to the Ontario farmers, do you think that 2008 continues to resonate with them? Where we've seen this, it went up before, it definitely can go down. Do you think that they hold on to that pretty tightly?
Absolutely, they do. Farmers have a long memory, and they should. They know that markets go up and then markets go down. So everybody sort of knows that, has that in the back of their mind, that anything like that could happen, and they're hoping that they'll be able to manage their risks and make sure that they can take advantage of these good times, but also be prepared for the chance that things might take a turn for the worse. But there's also the positive attitude that that's the nature of the markets and that's the nature of the weather. So overwhelmingly positive, but certainly still aware that anything could happen.
So when you look at corn versus soy for the farmers that are at that meeting, who do you think is winning the acre battle between corn and soybeans in Ontario right now?
Well, corn prices are a little hard to deny right now. Cal Wewell spoke a little bit about that, and he talked about concerns about the American carryout. Most of his data is American, but it does resonate because that does definitely impacts our markets that we sell into. But he was talking about the acreage battle there, and Cal was really concerned that he was really concerned about sort of what our carryout's like and how the carryout in the past 3 years has continued to decrease. So I think corn prices are a little hard to ignore right now in terms of acreage, but I don't think soybean growers are going anywhere because it's certainly an important rotational crop, and they're certainly saw a good year last year as well.
So is spring wheat the one that potentially, when you consider all that, is spring wheat potentially the one that maybe loses a little bit in Ontario then?
That's that's difficult to say. Spring wheat is farmers know that it's a tough crop to grow, but it's also really respected in the rotation. A lot of farmers that grow spring wheat are sort of in the eastern side of Ontario, and it's really important for a lot of farms there for hay, or sorry, for straw, and it's really important in the rotation. So I don't think we're not gonna see a dramatic drop, but we have seen a drop over the past couple of years, and GFO is trying to sort of encourage and bring some positivity to the spring wheat growing, as we have a spring wheat challenge and everything like that, trying to get farmers excited about it. But quality is certainly an issue
Yeah, for sure.
that farmers are aware of.
Cool. Okay, Claire, thanks a lot for joining us today, and sounds like the meeting was great. We'll talk to you again soon.